This is Anthony Morganti. Welcome to my podcast, For the Joy of Photography. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. You know, there's been a saying that's been around photography forever, and I've been hearing it a lot recently. That saying is, buying a new camera will not make you a better photographer. Now, you may hear some variation of that. Buying new gear will not make you a better photographer. Buying a new lens will not make you a better photographer. Either way, the sentiment is the same. And I mentioned that this has been around photography forever. When I first started out in photography, now 39 years ago, I heard it then, and I'm hearing it a lot lately. There's been some prominent professionals saying this a lot lately, and you probably wondered to yourself, is that true? I mean, is that really true that buying a new camera will not make you a better photographer? Well, in my opinion, that is true, but I will add that buying a new camera will help you take better photographs. Really? Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it's really not going to make you a better photographer, but new gear, depending on what you're upgrading from, it can help you take a better photograph. And the reason why is because your new camera can have, when compared to your old camera, now we're talking about cameras, but again, it could be lenses, lights, whatever. Your new camera can have a better, more resolute sensor, right? So your old camera was crop sensor, entry-level DSLR, and maybe it was a hand-me-down, a used camera. It was like 12 megapixels or something. Now you're upgrading to a full-frame camera, and it's 48 megapixels, and so it's more resolute. You could crop in tighter and not worry about losing pixels. You could do huge prints. So that alone is going to help you take better photographs. But is it going to make you a better photographer? Not really. But it is going to help you take better photographs. Another thing, your new camera could focus faster and more accurately than your old one. Again, that's going to help you take a better photograph. You're just going to be able to nail focus quicker, faster. So depending on what time of, you're sport and action photography, a wildlife photographer, all those shots you missed, maybe you're getting them now because of your gear. So yes, your new gear could help you take better photographs. Your new camera could have more exposure latitude. Maybe your old one, you just blew out the highlights all the time or you crushed the shadows. But the new camera has great exposure latitude, and now you're capturing detail in the highlights and in the shadows. And that really is a great advantage of a more expensive camera. That exposure latitude often gets ignored, but it is really probably one of the more important aspects of an upgraded camera, of a better camera, is the exposure latitude. Another thing is better white balance interpretation. A lot of times this gets overlooked as well, but often a cheaper camera, most of us, especially when we're starting out, we have auto white balance set, and quite often, especially in mixed light sources, you're getting this really weird colors. You're doing a portrait and your person looks like they're sick with the bubonic plague, something like that. So white balance interpretation is a problem a lot of times with cheaper cameras. The new cameras seem to be a lot better, or the upgraded cameras at least seem to be a lot better with white balance interpretation, and that is important. It's going to help you take a better photograph. Faster shutter. Maybe your old camera, the fastest it would go is 1/2000th of a second, and you really want to be a sport and action photographer. It's just not fast enough. And your new camera is 1/8000th of a second right away. It's going to help you take a better photograph. Better high ISO capability. A lot of entry-level cameras I see, if you go over ISO 3200, the image is pretty much unusable. But when you get that better camera, now it depends, but most better cameras you could get up there really high, 12,800, maybe even higher before you start approaching unusability. So again, the new cameras helping you take better photographs. And faster continuous drive. Again, that's sport action photography, maybe a wildlife photographer. Your old camera did like 4 frames per second, but the new one does 9, 12, something like that. So it could help you catch that fleeting moment a lot more readily than the old camera. And really, I mean, I could go on and on, right? I mean, you upgrade. Now we're talking about cameras here, but again, I said this variation is true for anything. You could upgrade your lens. So you take most of your shots with a 50 millimeter 1.8 lens. Then you upgrade to a 24 to 70 f at 2.8. Well, you get that extra range. You could zoom in, zoom out, or whatever. You take most of your image with your kit lens, which is like f3.5 to 5.6. Then you buy the new lens and it's f2.8 all the way through the zoom range. And that, again, has advantages, allows you to take images in low light situations that you weren't able to take with the other lens. The new lens, I guarantee, is probably going to focus better and faster. It's probably weather sealed, things like that. So there's a lot of advantages to that lens over the other lens. So again, this is really about gear, although I'm kind of skewing it towards having a different camera, but it really is about gear. New gear can help you take better photographs, but really the new gear isn't really going to help you be a better photographer. What do you really need to do to be a better photographer? Well, I tried to qualify and quantify this. This is my opinion. This is what you need to do to be a better photographer. In my opinion, you must practice, 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 then practice some more. I mean, that seems obvious, but really, my experience being around young photographers, students, whether or not they're 18 or 80, you could still be a student. Either way, when I've seen these, and when I say young photographers, I don't mean young in age. I mean young to the craft or art of photography. So again, you could be 80 years old and still be a young photographer. Anyway, my point is, I've seen many of them so into photography, that's all they even think about is photography, but they're not out taking pictures. They're just like on the internet looking at pictures. They're on Instagram looking at photos. They're talking about photography in the cafe, but they're not out there actually taking photographs. So if you're new to photography, get out and take pictures. Stop talking about it. Stop looking at pictures as much, but go out and actually take your own and try all different types of photography. Go from macro to portraiture to landscapes to astrophotography to street photography. Do all different things. Doing all those different types of photography not only helps your technique and helps you become a better photographer, it also helps you find your style. And when I say style, I actually mean kind of what you're interested in, because some people prefer portraiture over landscapes, whereas some people might prefer landscapes, So it really helps you kind of determine your journey, what you want to do in photography. So go out and do all those different types of photography. The other thing, you should really invest in education. A lot of times, young photographers have $100 to spend, and they spend $100 on gear. Really, the greatest proportion of that $100, and I'm going to quantify this in a moment, should probably be spent on some type of education. Now, it's really nice now with, the internet that's been around now for like 20 years, but with the internet comes a lot of opportunity to get education for free. I mean, that's how you probably found me, right? On YouTube somewhere, trying to teach you how to process your images. Again, go on YouTube, find a photographer on YouTube you really admire and see what they offer for free. Watch what they're doing. Go find articles on photography. Soak up all you can. There's a lot of free education out there. So try to learn as much as you can. If you do have $100 to spend some of that on education. If there is a photographer you admire and they offer something over and beyond what they offer for free, invest in what they're offering. Buy it. You really need to invest in the education. I don't see that enough. I really don't. A lot of people talk a good game, but they don't really back it up. You want to be a great photographer, you really have to practice and you have to learn. So go out there and really learn. The other thing you need to do is receive honest, educated critique and feedback. And I threw that word educated in there. Again, because of the internet, you could go on any group on Facebook and post an image and ask for constructive criticism, and a lot of people are going to help you. Unfortunately, some of those people may not be any better of a photographer than you are at your stage of growth. So what they might be recommending might not be true, might not be applicable. So you should receive honest, educated critique and feedback. And the way you would do that is you would seek out a person that is more advanced than you, more experienced than you, and get their opinion. Now, you could pay for a portfolio review. A lot of professionals offer that. But there are a lot of professionals that will do it for free. I'm actually friends with several photographers on Instagram, several that I follow, that I've seen post in Instagram stories say, anyone needs help with their photography, hit me up, send me your images. They're offering for free. And to tell you the truth, that's how I learned. I think I've mentioned many times there were two professionals that took me under their wing. One was mainly a wedding and a portrait photographer, and the other one, he did weddings and portraits as well, but he was more of an event and like a corporate photographer. But both of those guys took me under their wing and taught me really a lot about technical aspects of photography, from cameras to lenses, lighting, things like that. But they also taught me the psychology of dealing with a client, how to deal with difficult people, how to deal with different types of clients you may encounter, how to quote prices. They taught me everything. I mean, I really owe everything to them. So hopefully you could find someone that is willing to help you. And really, these people are out there. And so just get that educated critique and feedback. And I think that will help you as well. Now, once you do those three things, go back up to number one and practice some more. Go invest more in education, then get some more educated critique and feedback, honest educated critique and feedback, and then go do it again. Just keep doing this. This is a never-ending cycle that you should do to be a better photographer. And if you do this, I guarantee you'll accelerate your growth and you'll be the best photographer you could be as quickly as you can be. Now, I said I tried to quantify this. Now, this is just my opinion of what you should do. But if you're a new photographer, photographing seriously for less than a year, and I say less than a year, but let's face it, many of us are working, a full-time job. We have kids that need to go to, sporting events and, cheerleading and hockey. We go on vacations with our family, spend time. We don't have time maybe to invest in photography. So maybe we've been messing around with photography for 3 or 4 years, but you're still considered a new photographer. So when I say less than a year, it could be more. You know deep down if you're really a newbie at photography. So if you are, then I believe that 90% of your time and money should be invested in education and only 10% new gear. So, upgrade a filter or something like that. But really, most of your money and your time should be invested in education. So if you have a spare hour to do photography, go out and take pictures, go out and watch YouTube video, read some articles on photography. If you have, a few $100 to spend on photography, spend it in education. Really, that is where the bulk of your time and money should go. And that will help you better in the long run than buying that new camera. Yes, that new camera is going to help you take a better photograph. I mentioned that. We've already covered that. But really, most of this time and your money should be invested in education. This will help you in the long run more so than any new camera lens or whatever is going to. Now, if you've been a serious photographer for more than a year, and again, I had to put a number on that, but you know who you are. So you might have been photographing for 3-4 years, and now you really know your camera. You could take a macro, you could take a portrait, you could take a landscape, you could, take pictures of the stars. You know how to do all that stuff. All right. So you're still, though, you still want to learn. There's more growth for you possible. Then I think 50% of your time and money should still be invested in education. Then you could do 50% new gear. This is around the time you should be considering upgrading your camera, upgrading your lens. Now, but still, don't ignore the education. So even if it's that, time invested that you have. So you have an hour here. Should I look at all the different sensor resolutions and sensor scores of the new cameras, or should I learn how to do something I'm not sure how to do, like maybe astrophotography, or learn how to do something? Spend that time in the education of improving yourself as a photographer. Don't worry about the DxO scores of the sensors, So really spend most of your time, or 50% of your time and money, in education still. And then, you could buy new gear and here and there. And when you buy new gear, you're going to have to research it. So, that's why 50% of your time and your money you could put to gear. So again, you still don't ignore the educational aspect. Now, if you're a pro or advanced amateur, well, how do you know if you're an advanced amateur, I guess? Well, if you're the best amongst your peers, you'll know your work's as good as the professionals around you. All the amateurs that, you're around, or you kind of hang out with, or that you even hang out with virtually, on Instagram or whatever, admire you. You'll know that your work is up there. Really, 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 good work, consistent. Then in that case, I still think 25% of your time and money should be invested in education and 75% in new gear. Photography is always advancing, not only technically, but just even the aesthetic aspect of it. There's trends that go, colors even go in and out, different. HDR was hot. Selective color was hot for a while. All these techniques have to be learned. They might fizzle though, like, HDR, that, really HDR look lasted too long, right? And then it kind of fizzled. Selective color was really popular for a while. So you'd see black and white images of a family and their eyes glow blue, things like that. So that selective color lasted for a while and then kind of fizzled. But these techniques, you have to be abreast of them. You have to be on top of them. You have to learn them. So 25% of your time and money still should still be invested in education. And then, you really could upgrade your gear now. You put a lot of money and time and research and stuff in investing in gear, but never, ever stop learning. That's what I'm ultimately saying. You always have to be on top of the field. You have to be learning new techniques. There could be a camera, I'm sure there will be a camera coming out that's going to revolutionize photography. So you're going to have to learn that, right? So you're going to have to invest your time and money in that education for this new type of camera. Then you're going to invest your money in that new type of camera as well. So again, never ever stop learning. And I mean, you hear that about anything. You could hear that about, I think I saw an interview with Les Paul a couple years before he died. He was in his 90s, and he was saying he was always learning new techniques on the guitar. So, I mean, the pro's pro is always learning, and that's how they stay being the best. And again, you got to practice, practice, practice. You're always practicing. So that's it. A relatively short podcast compared to at least the recent ones I've been doing. But I've been hearing that term. Well, I've heard that term forever. A new camera is not going to make you a better photographer. And I thought I really should qualify and quantify that. And I thought it would help set a lot of us on the path to becoming a better photographer, what we need to do to be a better photographer. And I hope that helps you. Thank you for watching my podcast, For the Joy of Photography. Remember, stop by my website, onlinephotographytraining.com. There you'll find all my latest videos and articles to help you improve your photography. That's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.